The mantra that I would say to myself for years was, I breathe success, I inhale opportunities, and I exhale results. What that meant to me was, when I say that I breathe success, I wanted success, my idea of success, to be as natural as breathing. When I say I inhale opportunities, opportunities are everywhere. I want to get myself in the mindset of understanding that. I don't want to, step outside of my door with a negative mindset. Oh, my tire's flat. I'm low on gas. I'm about to be late to work. I want to step outside and I want to see every opportunity that I can possibly see. So I want to inhale it all. I want all those opportunities outside to be available and ready for me. But obviously, an opportunity is only as good as what you do with it. So I want to exhale results.
Welcome to the Secrets of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Keys. Well, first of all, thank you for being a Secrets of Success listener. We certainly appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, just please pass it on, subscribe, leave a positive review in whatever format that you are contributing or consuming this content on. Now, a couple of things before we get into our guest today, who I just finished interviewing, Dr. Dauv Evans. Now, Dr. Evans really has done a lot of work around two areas. His doctorate degree is really in leadership, but we're talking about, he says the word breathe. All of us are going so hard, so fast, that we don't take a moment to just breathe, just to be in the moment, be mindful, and that there are opportunities all around us, and that a lot of people are framing events in life so negative that it freezes them, they can't go forward. The other one is this whole concept of a mindset of being a boss, meaning, are you responsible, taking responsibility for your whole mindset, and that you own your space? Even if you're an employee for somebody, having a boss mindset means that you're going to take initiative, that you are going to be driving things, making decisions, in owning your space rather than, quote unquote, being a victim. So really had a delightful conversation with Dr. Evans, and hopefully you enjoy us or join us on the other side of that. And just a note, CRG sponsors this event, sponsors the podcast. Just want to encourage that for today's show, two things. We have a brand new e-course on the What Do You Really Value on our Values Preference Indicator. It's one of the most transformational workshops that I ever have conducted. And doesn't matter where I go in the world, people just at the end of it said, wow, I didn't realize something so simple could be so powerful. And so you can go online with the link around the e-courses for the Value Preference Indicator. And number two is, if you're a professional developer or leader and you want to take yourself to the next level and you want to do the ultimate, you want to participate in an event that will transform you, then I cannot say enough about the Professional Mastery and Assessment Certification Workshop. It's 3 days. Depending on when you're listening to this, we hold it on a regular basis. Just go and look at the professional, we call it PMAC, Professional Mastery and Assessment Certification. And I just had an individual in our last session who said, this is the best program I have ever attended in my lifetime. And he was 65 and also is a psychologist. And so when you have those kinds of comments, you say, whoa, it's humbling, but also is the responsibility about, after 30 years, or in the company been around for 40 years, just a transformation that is possible through the tools and resources that we offer. So thank you again for listening. Here's our show with Dr. Dauv Evans. Welcome to the Secrets of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Keys. Well, when was the last time that you just took a moment to breathe? Just to reflect, to be in the moment. Well, you don't have to think about it anymore, because today's guest is going to be talking about his new book, Don't Forget to Breathe. So welcome to Secrets of Success, Dr. Dauv Evans. Dauv, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
Well, you're welcome. And so we'll get into the details of that. And one of the things we do on Secrets of Success is that people just appreciate story and journey and where thou hast cometh from, if I may. And so a little bit of your story, Dr. Evans, about, where did this all start for you? Where were you born, and just sort of a bit of your growing up?
Right. So I was born, I'm originally from New York, but we moved to North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, when I was about 9 or 10. So I've been in North Carolina for the vast majority of my life.
Now, what was the main? I'm going to interrupt you a little bit just to make sure your points. What was the main reason for the move from New York down south?
Yep. So my mother, she's from New York and grew up there all her life, and she was just looking to make a change. And she said she opened up like a travel book and looked at. It gave some top cities to live in or something along those lines. And there was, I want to say it was either Austin, Texas, or somewhere in Texas, and then like Raleigh, North Carolina. So she just chose Raleigh, North Carolina, and man, never looked back from there. It's went to someplace a little bit different and something that wasn't, I guess, as urban as where we were. We were right there in the city, New York. So.
Well, do you remember any of that when you were, before you left at 9?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have a pretty good memory. But not only that, when we first moved down here, I felt like we would travel back up because we still had relatives there. We would travel back up there. It felt like at least once every other month. So I have, really great memories there. And it almost felt like we didn't leave for the first few years. And like I was just there to, giving a talk a few weeks ago, and I stayed with my aunt who lives in the same apartment we used to live in when I was a kid. So it doesn't, so it's always like a second home almost.
Oh, sweet. Now, you mentioned your mom, but I didn't hear you talk about your dad.
Right. So my mother left my father when I was, I want to say 5 or 6. And I didn't see him too much after that. And then my mother didn't remarry till I was about 16. So I've known my stepfather for quite some time.
Now, we'll get into this. We're always curious about a people's, just the impact of those kinds of traumatic events or events, period. Just maybe share a little bit. I mean, you're 6 at that time, and then,
right.
9. What do you recall? How did that affect you?
You know what? I don't know if it affected me, if it had an adverse effect that was at least noticeable. Because I remember just as of recently, I would actually ask, my relatives, my parents and other older relatives, how did I act during that time? How did I respond to that? And, they said overall, there was no dramatic change in my mood or, in the way I acted or anything of that nature. The only thing I remember from that time was when my mother left my father, we were living in Buffalo, New York. That's where they went to college. And then she moved back in with her mother in the city, in Manhattan. And I remember my aunt, she worked in social work, and she bought me a book called Dinosaur Divorce. And I remember that's the only real touch point that I had that really helped me kind of understand what was even going on. That, really sticks out to this day. And I just remember kind of reading the book a little bit and, looking at the pictures. And I like to think, whether this is true or not, I like to think maybe understanding the idea of what was going on through that book made it seem like it wasn't such a bad thing. Things can potentially, still be stable, your parents still love you, so on and so forth. But overall, I feel like I guess came out of it okay. And, having a great family, to be able to talk through things, I think was really helpful as well throughout the years.
If I may ask, what was sort of the main reason for the separation?
I think it was just, aside from probably getting married too young, just differences, just main differences. To my knowledge, it wasn't anything super traumatic. But one thing that did stick out was, there was that intention for both parents to still have, a stable connection so you can have a cohesive front for the kids. And I can imagine how challenging that is, especially since we were in, different states. So I think that was a huge challenge for both parties. But overall, I think everything kind of worked out for the best, at least in my opinion.
Now, do you have siblings?
I do have one younger sister.
Okay. And how old is she? Like, as far as the age difference?
She's 3 years younger than me.
Okay. So when you moved at 9, she was 6. Well, there you go.
Right, correct.
Okay. So now we're down in North Carolina.
Yes.
What was that change like for you at 9 to kind of lose your friends and move into that situation there?
Right. So I remember coming to North Carolina, just some small cultural differences. One thing I remember is seeing kids out, playing out in the streets, and they didn't have shoes on, and that was something at least I didn't see in New York. That was different. People noticed my accent right away, which I'm sure I don't have anymore, but then they noticed my accent, was sounded a little different. But I felt like, overall people, the kids were friendly, so I remember making friends fairly fast. I had a short summer because I'm sure it's still the same now, but then school would start back up in September, so we moved during the summer break. And it starts here in North Carolina. It starts in August. So when I got here, it was a little after my birthday in June. So we had to go back in a couple months, and I was used to not going back till September. So I remember having that shorter summer. I'm like, oh man, that went by kind of fast.
Oh yeah, that kind of sucked.
Yeah, but aside from that, though, I remember it being a nice transition. But the biggest thing my sister and I really enjoyed was being able to go outside by ourselves. So I remember we were sitting in our apartment. My mother told us we can go outside, and we're looking at her like, "So you coming with us?" She's like, "No, just go out and go play." And we're like, "What?" We weren't able to do that in New York, so we love that freedom of just kind of going out, playing, and just having, as long as you come in at a certain time, you were fine. So that was a little bit of freedom that we were not used to.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Excellent. So now you're growing up. What were high school years like?
High school was great. I changed. I went to one high school my freshman year, and then went to another high school for the last, for the remainder of my 3 years there in high school. So that was interesting because the high school I went to as a freshman was the high school that most of the kids from elementary school, which is when I moved here, fourth grade, went to in middle school as well. So I've known those kids, forever. So then having to go to this new high school where, just about everybody was new was a little different. But I also looked at it as kind of a fresh start, which is how I looked at it when I went to college too. So when I went to this new high school, I was able to kind of start all over again. No one knew me. So what I thought was going to be a drag turned out to be a positive. I turned into a positive thing, and just I kind of rebranded myself, if you will. That's probably my first attempt at rebranding myself. So overall it was good.
When you think about it, and a lot of the work that you do in leadership and change, and we'll get into that in a little bit, is a lot of people have to go through change. What do you think, even at your young age, was the mindset that was enabling you to reframe things into a positive versus I'm leaving all my friends, I've known them for years, why do you make me move, why do you change, the different perspectives.
Right.
So what could you say to the audience, to the Secrets of Success audience, about what was the mindset that allowed you to sort of reframe this into a positive versus where many people might see it as a negative?
Right. So I guess this kind of goes back to that book that you mentioned, which was even then understanding that opportunities are everywhere. Opportunities are everywhere, and it's my understanding and my belief that some of the most successful people understand that. It's not that they're always the most fortunate or they're always the smartest or the most talented. It's just there's opportunities floating around everywhere, and there's individuals who know how to maintain a certain mindset that allows them to see those opportunities. So you can have two people looking at the same exact situation, but if one person has a closed-off mindset, they're not looking for any opportunities, all they're seeing is the negative, all they're seeing is the challenges and the hurdles, then they're likely to see either less opportunities or no opportunities versus someone who is a lot more open and they're actively looking for those opportunities. Like, okay, I know this isn't my favorite situation. I know the challenges and the hurdles, but what can I get out of this? They're asking different questions. What can I get out of this? How can I spin this into a positive? How can I make this work into my favor? How can I allow this situation not to deter me from whatever my goals were? Then you're bound to see some things that the other person is not going to see. So I don't want to give myself too much credit and act like I did that on purpose when I was younger, but I certainly saw some opportunities maybe as they kind of unfolded in front of me, and then I simply just acted on them. And again, it allowed me to be a little bit more resilient than maybe the average person in that situation. But like anybody else, you still had your challenges and things of that nature. But as you get older, you definitely learn that there's two sides to every coin. And if you keep both eyes open, you'll certainly see a more full-bodied perspective. Gives you more options.
Now, not everybody, they call it in resilience training the growth mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody has the growth mindset. So what do you think was, not to belabor or beat a dead horse, but what do you think in your background or even what your mom was doing with you was creating this growth mindset with you as a young teenager?
Well, if I had to take a stab at it, I really think it is when you're in a household, with a single mother, and you can imagine some of the challenges that that you may have a firsthand account that you're kind of witnessing on a regular basis. Every day you're watching someone having to make all the decisions that typically two people can make, and you can bounce ideas off each other. They have to make them on their own. And they definitely have to be a lot more resilient and put up a more positive front on their own when things aren't always going their way. So I think when you see that, even if you don't know that's what you're looking at, you may not understand the full scope. I know I didn't understand the full scope of all the challenges that my mother faced. But you still understand that, regardless, there's situations that go on, and for some reason they still have a positive attitude, and they're still able to use their creativity to make something work. And in the end, the family is better for it.
Excellent. I think one of the points you're making, Dr. Evans, is that, as parents, even if kids don't even really know what's going on, what we do and what we don't do, those behaviors are constantly leaving some kind of impact.
Absolutely.
Even if it's subliminal of some sort or subconscious. So,
Right.
I mean, that's a really good point for all of us, that we really need to take responsibility for, I'll call it, the impressions that we're leaving. And it doesn't matter who it is. It could be somebody at work, and that's some of the work that you do now around leadership. So that being said, so you've moved into this new high school, and you said you went to college. So What did you take in college, and how did you come to that decision as far as what you were going to take when you first left?
Yep. So that was a roundabout decision as well. So when I finished high school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. So I actually went to community college for a year, which I loved. And again, more so accidental, but looking back, I'm glad I went that route. But by the time I went to community college for a year, because I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. And in doing so, that was the greatest experience. And the reason why, because for me, that was a great foray into what college and quote unquote the real world, how I was going to tackle the real world, if you will. So while I was in community college, I found out that I had a talent for speaking and training. I found that out in my English 102 course. I had a instructor by the name of Eunice Hargett, and we had to do like a mock trial, and it was recorded. I still have it on VHS somewhere around, as a matter of fact. And
you
I
still have
found
a VHS recorder?
I do.
Player?
No, I have the tape. No, I just have the tape. I don't have I don't have a VCR, just the tape. I need to get it converted digitally sometime. But yeah. So I remember doing that. I remember giving me some great feedback. Saying, you have a real talent, for speaking. You should really think about that. And I heard that for years and never really gave it a second thought till years later. But again, so I really picked up on some things, like I'm really good at this, I'm not so good at that. And then after school, although I performed pretty well, I still took some time off. I took a semester off and worked full-time at a music store back when those existed. And for the first time in my life, and I mean literally the first time in my life, I was like a supervisor working with college students. They would come in, my coworkers would come in and do their homework. And for the first time in my life, I missed having homework. I was like, man, I wish I was in school. I wish I had a paper to write, and wish I had some homework to do. So I went back to school for one more semester and then transferred to a four-year college, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where I majored in history, because at the time I thought I wanted to be an attorney. And attorneys that I spoke to in the past told me the best way to prepare for law school is major in something you like, but also if it has if it has an emphasis on writing and researching, then that'll be a bonus. And I was like, well, that's what you do in history. You do a lot of reading and do a lot of research. So, and I like it. So, I thought that was great. And although I
can't say I thought that going through history was the window to getting your law degree, but it makes sense now that you explain it.
Yeah. And for me, again, I'm glad I went that route, even though I didn't, go on to pursue a law degree specifically. I'm glad I majored in history, because, looking back, I think it made my college years all that more enjoyable. The fact that I was able to study, a lot of courses I was very interested in, and gave me a new perspective on the world and, the country that we live in just by studying it. And yeah, like I said, college was really, and I took college seriously as well, because I already had my fun years and things of that nature while I was in community college. By the time I got to a four-year college, I didn't go to clubs or parties or anything like that. Not to say that anybody that does should stop, but it was more of like a serious endeavor for me. I didn't go there to have fun or to get away from the parents necessarily. Like, I was going there to get this degree because I was that hungry for it. That time off really made me hungry for it. So I didn't go to any parties. I hung out with my friends every now and then, of course. I had some good buddies we would have a GPA competition. We would see who got the highest GPA, and then whoever got the highest GPA we put some money in the pot, and they got the money. So I was on a mission, and I'm glad I had the friends that I did, because they really helped me maintain and stay.
Put it this way: I went to college and also did my MBA as well as you doing yours. Now, that was as an adult. I enjoyed doing that, but I can't say that I've met too many students like you, where you actually put stuff in the pot for the highest GPA.
Yes.
Most people who are in college right now say you're sick. So I say, so that's good. That's fine. So obviously studying in just that whole area where you say, listen, I'm missing writing a paper, is something that just comes naturally to you that you enjoy. I would say that many people that would not necessarily be true. So you saw that fairly quickly. So you finished university or college. Then what did you do?
So then after that, when I got out of college, obviously it's time to work. And just like a lot of people, when you first get your degree, you probably have all these lofty ideas of things you want to do, but some of the jobs that are available to you, one of them is sales. And I never saw myself as a salesperson, so I got into sales. I started off at Singular Wireless, back when AT&T was Singular years ago, and I started doing that. And that's when I found out I had a knack for training. I became a supervisor, and I wouldn't say I had a knack for selling or even being a manager, but when it came to training individuals, my new employees, I really had a knack for showing people, step by step how to be successful and how to bring out their talents. I found that I really, not only did I have a knack for it, I really enjoyed it. And I never forget the interview that I had for that job. It was a fairly easy interview, but at the end, the owner of the store asked me to sell him something. He told me to sell him his umbrella. So he just gave it to me. He said, sell it to me. And that's when I found out I had a gift for extemporaneous speaking. So I sold him the umbrella. Don't ask me what I said, but whatever I said, I must have impressed him because, I shot right up to the top. And like I said, I showed other people how to be able to think on their feet. If you know your product that well, if you're confident in yourself, and again, you're able to read a person, fairly fast, then you can certainly formulate, what it is that you need to say to, in this particular case, sell them something. So
let's stop there and just take a breath, pardon the pun, for a moment and say, okay, of course, it's a play on words for those that are listening that maybe you just tuned in and said, okay, don't forget to breathe is your book. So we'll get to that here in just a moment. What are some of the skills? You mentioned a couple of them. But those individuals who are listening right now, what are some of the skills that really contributed to you shooting to the top? Now, not to any job, but just in this situation, when you think about selling something, a lot of people don't really like this idea of selling, but the reality is that influence is very, very critical and important in life. So what were some of the skills that, known or unknown to you, that contributed to the success that the audience members can consider as something for their own development?
I would definitely say one of them is certainly playing to your own strengths and not necessarily worrying about your weaknesses. This is something that I heard echoed, years later about my mentor. But even then, I knew when I was in sales. Again, I was not. Again, I would never say that I'm the greatest salesman in the world, but I was. I had some strengths that I definitely played upon. A couple of them, for example, was again just kind of speaking off the cuff. I was always pretty good at that. So that's something that I definitely used to my advantage when I was speaking one-on-one with customers. And the other thing is, I loved electronics, so I'd be the guy who'd go onto websites and just look up little tidbits and facts about electronics that most people didn't know. Most of my coworkers didn't know this. My manager didn't know these things, and obviously most consumers didn't know them. So I was able to speak about, in this case, cell phones and the service that they'd be using with a little bit more eloquence than the average person, because I didn't mind looking up these little tidbits. It was fun to me. So I, that's what I would do. Now, other people, they would have a different approach. They'd be a little bit more aggressive, or maybe they had a real effervescent personality. I didn't have all that. I didn't naturally have that. But so for me, again, I was able to speak off the cuff really well. And like I said, I knew a lot about my product because I love looking that stuff up. And then the other thing I would love to do as well is I'm a thinker. So I love troubleshooting. So most people would come in and they don't even want to buy anything. They just want their phone fixed. And I love troubleshooting. So I would look up how to fix stuff. Even, the customer's long gone and I'm looking up online, how do you fix it? How would I go about retrieving, contacts when the phone's been wet or damaged? I'd look these little things up. So the next time a customer comes in, I knew how to solve that problem. And because I solved the problem, they were more amenable to, listening to me, potentially sell them a phone or service, so on and so forth. So I didn't worry about trying to doing.
Sorry to interrupt. One of the things you're doing, you're adding value to the conversation versus just trying to sell something. And the other one is that you were establishing competence within a certain area of your industry or segment. A lot of times when we go and deal with people, you wonder, do you know anything? I mean, a lot of times the client knows more than the person that's trying to sell. So you were really setting yourself apart to be an expert, be competent, but also then to do some problem solving, which is an expertise that really only the top percentage of the population demonstrate on a regular basis. So
Right.
that's a great process as well. So let's move out of selling phones. Where did you go from there?
So after that, I went to another carrier where I did, virtually the same thing, but I wanted to get out of that. I wanted to get into higher education, and I got my first opportunity in that when I started working with University of Phoenix as an academic counselor, and that's where things really started to take off. There was a myriad of opportunities that I took advantage of while I was there for almost 7 years. So I started.
And not only
as
did you an academic advisor or counselor, but you also ended up doing your MBA through them.
Right. I did my MBA while I was there. That's one of the first things that really attracted me to that opportunity. When I was talking to them on the phone, they said, "Hey, if you work here, you have the opportunity to potentially get your degree if you'd like as well at the campus." I wasn't interested in online; it was still fairly new, at least to me. So I was like, "Well, can you do it at the campus?" Like, "Yeah, we have a night program. You can do that." So that's what I enrolled like ASAP after I started that job, and that opportunity again opened up a myriad of doors. Again, not only did I had the opportunity to work in higher education, but also, like you said, I got my MBA while I was there. While getting my MBA is where I met my mentor, my very first MBA class, who told me about the existence of a career of being a speaker and trainer. He's the one who planted that seed into my head, why I do what I do today. So I did that, and then that's when I got into corporate training and got to actually practice what I'd be doing today. I also got to teach college level courses as well. So a lot of what I do today, University of Phoenix was that testing ground for those skills, training, teaching, the idea of a career in doing this on your own. All of that came from that one opportunity. So, and that was the first time I actually found out that, thank you. That's the first time that I found out that when I speak, opportunities, doors open, opportunities actually, tend to open up for me. So that's the first time I noticed it. And then when I look back, I was like, that was always happening. And I didn't notice it until, I started working at University of Phoenix. So a lot happened to me while I was there.
Well, congratulations on that. Now, in this whole mix, because we want to jump into your book, because we only have about 15 minutes left in the show, and we just want to make sure that we get into that content. But somewhere prior to writing this book of yours, you completed your Ph.D. Where did that motivation come, and where did you do it?
Right. So as you can imagine, working at higher education, I had the opportunity to work alongside a lot of faculty members, and a lot of them were either working on their doctorate degree or already had their doctorate degree. And again, at the time I was looking at a career in higher education. So I completed my degree at Capella University, and I did leadership in higher education. That's where a lot of my colleagues went as well. They recommended it. And I had a good friend of mine, Dr. Larry Woods, who, we, essentially almost started our degree program together. So we went to a lot of, colloquial together that we had to travel to. And again, it was another extremely positive experience that opened up a lot of doors. And for anybody who's currently in a PhD program or maybe even thinking about pursuing a PhD, it's not for everybody, but after weighing up the factors, if it's something that you ultimately choose to do, again, it can be extremely beneficial, but it's only beneficial depending on the resourcefulness of the individual. It's not like an automatic cheat code, if you will, to life. If you're a type of person who's creative and hungry and, really knows, again, you have that mindset of, looking for opportunities, that's something that you can have in your back pocket that can potentially open some doors, but it's not automatic. So,
Well, being a fellow person who's done this, it takes some effort. Though, what's happened now in education, and of course you were with Phoenix, and everybody that's listening, I love Phoenix, and in fact, I quote Phoenix as one of the first organizations globally to understand the blended learning module or model, and how inappropriate or ineffective many of the traditional sort of educational models are. And so, as an adult learner, and when I did my PhD, it was project-based, is that, I don't need to kind of go and take all these required courses. I just want to work on what I want to work on. And somebody said, well, no, that's not a real degree. Well, who says? So, all of these come into play, and that's where, Phoenix took a lot of criticism. When I did my MBA, it was an executive MBA as well. And these were just coming into vogue where, what would it mean if we were with other professionals and adults that had full-time jobs while you did it? So good on you to set that up. Now, with that, now we're going to take a breath, pardon the pun, and you've done all of this work. Now you have this book. So let's just tell us the story about where the book "Don't Forget to Breathe" came from, and then what are you trying to teach us in it?
Mhm. So the book, where it came from, was "Don't Forget to Breathe" was essentially almost a mantra that I would say to myself for years. I would say, I breathe success, I inhale opportunities, and I exhale results. So that's where the
okay. So say that slower and more succinctly for the listeners, because they could be driving right now.
Yep. So I'll say it again. So again, the mantra that I would say to myself for years was, I breathe success, I inhale opportunities, and I exhale results. The reason why I said that, quote, what that meant to me was, when I say that I breathe success, I wanted success, my idea of success, to be as natural as breathing. So when I say I inhale opportunities, somewhat to like what I said earlier, opportunities are everywhere. And I want to get myself in the mindset of understanding that. I don't want to, step outside of my door with a negative mindset. Oh, my tire's flat. I'm low on gas. I'm about to be late to work. I want to step outside and I want to see every opportunity that I can possibly see. So I want to inhale it all. I want all those opportunities outside to be available and ready for me. But obviously, an opportunity is only as good as what you do with it. So I want to exhale results. So when I take in all those opportunities, I want to, again, I want to get my mindset right to be able to do something with all these opportunities that are out here. I don't want to be lazy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sit on an opportunity or squander a contact that I got. I want to do something with it. I want to exhale the results and make stuff happen. I want to produce. And that's what I would say to myself every day, to see the opportunities and then do something with it. Don't sit on it. I think we've all been guilty of either again, having the wrong mindset to see the opportunity, or once maybe you get the opportunity, you sit on it. You don't call that person back, or you don't fill out that application, or whatever it is you need to do to move on an opportunity. You let laziness get the best of you. So that's what I didn't want to do. And that's why I ultimately wrote the book, and that's kind of what the book is telling the reader, as well as redefining the idea of what success is. And I think some of us may have heard this idea of, success is not necessarily, what you end up attaining in the end, or, getting money or position and things of that nature. It's more so the lessons that you learn in the journey. Because I've known.
So what is your definition of success then? Is it just the lessons, or what is it?
Absolutely. It's what they call, so some people say taking an L, they'll use that for slang as taking a loss. But I'll say I'll take an L because, I'll take that lesson. Because regardless of whether you got what you want in the end, to me, success is the lessons that you learned in that journey. That, that is what the success is, because that can be, the lesson that you got is worth its weight in gold. Because not only, think about what you can do with the lesson, regardless of whether you reach that goal or not. If I try to pursue a degree and I didn't get the degree, let's say, how many lessons have you learned along the way of trying to pursue that degree? Now, what can we do with those lessons? I can write a book about it. I can speak about it. I can talk to my kids about these lessons. I can talk to other individuals about these lessons. I can do, again, and it's only limited by my imagination. Mm-hmm. I can do multiple things with these lessons with no degree. There's people that literally do that. There's a couple of folks that have businesses set up around the idea of not necessarily jumping from high school and getting a diploma. They set up companies on helping, high school kids to explore opportunities without getting a degree. Maybe you go get a trade or get a certificate. So, and a lot of them pursued a degree, did not get the degree, but they got lessons from it, and now it's profitable because they have a business around that. So people have to understand that the journey isn't always about getting what you want. It's about those lessons that you learn along the way. Because whether you get what you want, it's iffy. You may or may not, but you're going to learn a lesson. There's definitely going to be a lesson there. It's just a matter of, did you see it? And then again, if you want to do something with it, you can do something with it, and you might even make money off of it if you're really creative. But most people don't see it that way. It's very linear. It's either I got it or I didn't.
So,
very black and white.
So if we think about the audience, and here's the reality. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who don't see it that same way as you're teaching. What's been getting in their way? What is it that they're doing that they need to stop doing, or they need to start doing, so that they can start seeing and experiencing more opportunities in their life? Right.
Well, one thing that I think most people in education learn, especially when you get a doctorate degree, is you learn how to get to the source, of things. Like, where did this idea of success come from? So everybody would need to stop and let's critically think. Let's think about our thoughts. Where did this idea of success come from? More than likely, it either came from maybe a family member, who taught them, maybe your parents, grandparents, and or it was definitely shaped by like the media. You know, you see a successful person in a magazine or on TV or a movie, so on and so forth. You see what success looks like. Oh, I see what it looks like. Okay, they got a big house, and they got a car, or they got this job, or whatever it is. You get an idea of what it looks like. So now you have this very basic idea of what success looks like. They're not going to, more than likely, depending on what you're watching or who's teaching you, they're not going to give you this complex idea, this more well-rounded and well-versed idea of what it could be to be successful. It'll be very simplistic. So if you break down your idea first, where did this even come from? And is this what I want? Because that's the next important thing is, do you really want that? There's a lot of people who, I want the house, I want the car, I want this. Why do you want that? I just, because it'd be nice. You have to really ask yourself, do you even really want that? Is that really the goal? And then once they kind of break that down, they can kind of redefine success from a more holistic perspective. Now, this is what I would ask the individual who's probably never questioned where their idea of success came from. Once you attain those things, right, whatever it is, you get the car, you get the house, the job, the title, then what? Now what you going to do? And then I think by putting them in that position, and I just pushed you past the finish line, but you're still alive, so you're still more living to do. And now by thinking, well, what am I going to do now? That's going to give you an idea of what's really important to you, because now the obstacle and the hurdle of not getting things has been removed. You have those things now. You have the money. You have all that. What are you going to do now? What's important to you? What are you going to do? And it's like, well, I'd really like to start a nonprofit. It sounds like that's pretty important. You want to start a nonprofit. So if you had everything you want, you'd really want to start a nonprofit, not go be a financial advisor, not go be an attorney. You really want to start that nonprofit, or you really want to stay home full time and take care of your kids, or something along those lines. Whatever it is, then we start to get to the truth, because now we removed all that other stuff that you thought was the goal out of the way. But I think that and the allure of not being able to have those things as well, man, I want that mansion because it's so hard to obtain, and I think the idea of not being able to get it, being those things being, at least in their minds, somewhat unattainable, also kind of gives it this allure that's, I got to get that because, it's so hard to get, it's so rare, and if I get that. But I think if you push people in that mind space and really make them critically think about where that idea of success came from, they'll find themselves in a very different place. But I think most people don't question that. Most people don't push back on these ideas. So you find yourself trying to attain the same exact things everybody else wants to attain. So,
well, I think that's a good point that you make. And so let's just take a breath and delve into this a little bit as the host, and just maybe interpret what you've just said for the listeners in a way. When we think about it, what you're forcing people to do is that if I get this goal, whatever XYZ might be, what we believe is success for me in this life, and I get that, then what? In that, what do we do when we go beyond these things? It's the being versus the doing and the having that you're really trying to sort of unfold for those individuals. And that's a brilliant way, Dr. Evans, to get people to consider, okay, you have these 4 things on the list. You're getting the car, the debts are paid off, whatever. You're getting the house. You've got those. Now what? And it's interesting, listeners, what Dr. Evans has said. For you, what are those goals that's now what? If you were to have those, if you were to achieve those, what would you do if you already achieved it? That's done. Now what? And I think that's a brilliant way to be able to set that up, to think about it. Now, the other thing that you mentioned earlier, and you mentioned a couple of times just cursory, and that was, I'm not going to be lazy. So you were inserting this word lazy. Where was that coming from, and how do you communicate to the audience about that?
So opportunities, again, once you notice an opportunity, I think that the average person, you get like a jolt of energy, to be able to act on it. But there's so many distractions, for everybody, everybody, because I've certainly been there, that get in your way, and it's very easy to just not have the energy to take that next step, because then that's when you realize there's more work involved. It's like, okay, I noticed the opportunity, great. I got that new contact that I need, great. Now I got to fill out that long application, or now I got to actually write that book, whatever it is. And for me, I saw that this was a trend for people that, again, they know what they want, and there's opportunity in front of them. And I'm talking about the folks who've already noticed the opportunity now. Like, they see it like, I can just go do X, Y, and Z, and I can get what I want. But executing was certainly in the way. So that's what actually is leading me to write, my next book. It's not necessarily like a sequel from Don't Forget to Breathe, but it's certainly an idea that was, born out of, the research that I did for the first book, Don't Forget to Breathe, which is the idea of, being a boss. And I think I try to distinguish between a boss and like a worker. And when you are a worker, it's very easy to become lazy and not move, because most people who are quote unquote workers and you work for an organization, it's very easy to become very dependent on an organization, almost like it's your parent. And organizations set it up this way because they have your job description already written out. And not all, but most organizations don't want you to step outside of that. I'm telling you what you need to do. You just do X, Y, Z. And for most people, they're more resilient, they're more creative, they want more autonomy, especially millennials. And they either go one or two ways. You can either fall back into a worker mindset, if you will, which comes off as lazy and not really creative, and you get bored, or you can try to break free, almost like being a rebel, if you will, and kind of take a little bit more responsibility for what you do. And that's that boss mindset. And essentially, a boss, in the way I'm talking about it, is an autonomous leader that takes full control over his or her brand and worth in the marketplace. And when you do that, you essentially treat your job, even though you're working for an organization, you treat your job like it's your own business. And when you do so, you find yourself to be more forward-thinking, more proactive. So again, so you're not lazy. You're actually taking the necessary steps to do what you need to do, and you're more resilient. You are more likely to seek out professional development opportunities because you want to better, quote unquote, your business, if you will. And again, you're more primed for leadership opportunities in the future. I know we've all seen. You and I were talking offline. I know we've all seen individuals who are shoved or pushed into a leadership position, but they are not necessarily ready for leadership. But if you're a boss, you're already ready because you were taking care of your business as if it was, again, you're taking care of your job as if it was your business. So you already ready to go. I don't need you to prime me for, for leadership. I was already ready before you pushed me there. So I'm ready to go. So, so that's kind of where my new book is going to be going. I'm excited about that.
For sure. Well, of course, here at Secrets of Success, we agree with you 100% where this whole idea of taking personal responsibility is the opposite of playing the victim. And I suspect that you've run into these individuals as a speaker over the years where they blame everybody else. Well, if you blame, you have given away your power, you've given away, quote unquote, your responsibility, but you've also given away this ability to see opportunities because it's always somebody else's fault. I mean, we remember Scott Peck's book, right? The Road Less Traveled, where character disorder, where it's everybody else's fault. And we know that that is the most difficult condition to treat because that person is not taking responsibility for the condition. And guess what? Your condition is based on what you've done. If you start blaming everybody else, no matter what's going on, well, then you've now become a victim and you have no influence over that. What do you say to, now, we only have a couple of minutes left, but what would you say to the people that have this victim mindset? So, well, you don't know the family I grew up in, and you don't know the environment I was part of, and you don't know this discrimination that I faced, and on it went. What would you say to those people, Dr. Evans?
Yeah, so I would say, again, if we're going back to the theme of my first book in terms of breathing success, so if someone's pointing at all these different factors and saying, these are some of the hurdles that other people can't understand, and this is why I'm not where I want to be in life, and so on and so forth, I would say, number one, more than likely there is somebody who can somewhat identify. As rough as our situation is and as unique as we think our situation is, there's somebody on this earth that can more than likely identify. Not only that, I would also offer there's probably someone who's turned that tragedy or turned that hurdle into a success story. I saw a quote that said, some people probably heard this one before, where I turned my setback, my setback is going to be a setup for my success. And for me, it's again, taking that negative situation that you were in and, again, using that as a stepping stone for your comeback. We've all heard comeback stories, and there's no reason why that person's setback can't be like their little setup for their, for their success as well. But you have to see the opportunity, though. That closed mindset, like you said, giving away that power to say, I'm helpless. I can't do anything because of X, Y, Z, closes your mind off automatically to look for any opportunities. You're not looking for anything now because in your mind, they don't exist. So, but if you're looking for it, you're bound to find something. You're like, I know I can get something out of the situation. What is it? And I would say I just heard a story from a gentleman. I was doing a talk in New York, and I heard a story from a gentleman talking about how he came from a rough neighborhood, things of that nature, where his daily struggle was making sure that he's not held at gunpoint for his sneakers on a regular basis. So today he works with VCs out in California on a regular basis, and he said it's no problem for him to go into a boardroom and talk to board full of investors or whoever, very intimidating individuals to other people in business, but not to him because of where he came from, what he's used to. That's low-level stress for him. That's low-level stress for him. So he has no problem, operating and starting businesses and taking those risks because he's already had to take huge risks when he was younger, which is, as you can imagine, very traumatic. But he's using that trauma as, for him, almost like as a testing ground and say, if I can survive that, I can certainly do this. This is nothing. So again, use it, right? Use it as much as possible. It can be a source of strength if you want it to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, and I appreciate that story. Now, Dr. Dauv Evans, how can people find out more about your work, your book, maybe booking you as a speaker? How can they get a hold of you?
Yep, absolutely. So definitely go to my website. It's the Gallus Collective. That's GALLUS Collective, the GallusCollective.com. And then, of course, you can always follow me on Instagram. I'm always posting videos about what I'm doing, things of that nature. You can follow me at Gallus Collective on Instagram as well. And I also have a networking group for professionals in the area, in the Durham area, if they happen to be in town. I host once a month. It's called the Gallus Event. It's on Meetup. It's on Eventbrite. There's a Facebook page for it. It's all over the place. You type in the Gallus Event, again, GALLUS event. You'll certainly see that event as well, so you can definitely get in touch with me that way.
Well, and what we'll do is we'll make sure all of these links are in our show notes, depending on what platform you're listening to. Mm-hmm. So, before we go, if you were to leave sort of an encouragement, a piece of wisdom for the Secrets of Success listeners that they can take action on as your final word, what would you say to the listeners to encourage them?
Again, I guess I'd have to go quote my book. I would definitely say, hey, make sure every single day, as much as possible, look in the mirror and just quote and say, today I'm going to breathe success. I'm going to inhale opportunities and exhale results. And when I say inhale opportunities, I actually inhale, I take a deep breath in. And then when I say exhale results, I exhale, and that's my little short meditation, I guess, as well. And just go out there with the right mindset before you tackle whatever it is you're going to tackle.
Mm. Well, Dr. Evans, thank you very much for hanging out with us today here on Secrets of Success.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ken, for having me. I enjoyed it.
Well, stay with us, Dauv. So, Secrets of Success listeners, my encouragement is, and you think about Dov's story, and he went through a lot, and he had a separation when he first started as far as his mom leaving his dad, but he didn't use that as an excuse, changed high schools, moved through school, took some training that eventually he didn't directly use history, but he used it as a lesson. And so what is it in your life that you have done and you have taken that's really a lesson that you can bring to the table? Don't be using excuses. Take that moment and breathe. Everybody talks about mindfulness now. Can you just take a moment and say, you know what, every single person on this planet matters. Every single person has something to contribute. So what is it for you? Don't be using the victim mindset. Thank you as always for listening to The Secrets of Success. If you like what we're doing, please leave a review, pass it on, share it, subscribe in whatever platform you are participating on. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Keys.
Thanks for exploring the secrets of success with us. If you want to keep the momentum going, log on to crgleader.com. Scroll to the bottom and sign up for our inspirational emails. You can also take your success to the next level by following us on Facebook and Twitter and connecting with Ken on LinkedIn. We hope you have a great week and look forward to you joining us next time for the Secrets of Success podcast with Dr. Ken Keys.